We can add a note like this. We can add another. Then we can go to the note, and then finally we can delete the note, just like this. Boom. In this video, we're going to go over how you can create your first React Native app from scratch. So in order to do that, we're going to be using a tool called Expo, and this will just make a lot of the kind of introductory starter stuff a lot easier if you don't have any previous experience with React Native. The first thing you want to do is come over to the docs here at expo.io, and we're going to go to the quick start guide here. And the first thing you want to do is come over, and let's bump this up a little bit here, and you want to install the global Expo CLI. So that's right here. So you want to come into your terminal and run npm install global Expo CLI, and that'll give you the tools that we need to get started with Expo. All right, so once you have that, we can go over and let's come over to a terminal over here. And we got our terminal here, and we're just going to run expo init and then the project name. And in this project, we're just going to be creating a simple notes app just to show you how everything's going to work. So we're going to expo init, and we're just going to say notes app like this. All right, so right now you're going to have a few templates to choose from here. So you can have just a blank minimal app, or you can use TypeScript, and there's tabs here. You can choose this option, and this will give you some navigation. So there's also a bare workflow, but we're going to stick with the manage expo workflow here. So let's come in. We're just going to choose the blank here. All right, so that may have taken a minute to install everything, but that should be good to go. Now, we're going to come in here and we're going to cd into our project. So cd into notes app, wherever you have that. And then we are going to open this up in our VS Code. This is what our Expo app is going to look like right off the bat with nothing added. So this is just our app.js. That's the only file we have. And yeah, it's got a little bit of styling and a little bit of text, which we'll remove in a minute. So the first thing we're going to want to get into here is we're going to open up an integrated terminal here. And in here, we're going to add a bunch of things, but let's first check out what we're adding here. So we're going to have a design system we're going to use, and we're going to use this thing called React Native UI Kitten. And I've never used this prior, but it's pretty nice. It gives us a lot of components, and they're all kind of separated into their own little libraries, so you can choose what you want to use. So we're going to use this. There's other ones. React Native Elements is another popular one, and there's a bunch of others. They just give you a bunch of stuff right off the bat, so buttons and whatnot. So you don't have to code all that yourself. So with that said, let's go and add over a bunch of things. So I'm just going to paste this in here. So we're going to go yarn add, and then these are all the different things we're going to use. So if we go through these here, we have the Ava design, which comes from that UI kitten there, /Ava, React Native Community, Async Storage. So we're going to be using that in order to store our notes so they persist if we refresh. And that's kind of like a local storage for your React Native apps. Then we got React Navigation. This is going to be our navigation. We're going to use bottom tabs in order to do that. And then we have React Native navigation, the package, and then the UI components. And this is going to be from the UI kitten here, that library that we just talked about. And then finally, React Native screens, we need to add that as well. So let's go ahead and run that. And then for our Expo app, there's actually one more thing I forgot. So I'm going to paste this in, and we want to go Expo install here and React Native SVG at 9.13. 0.6. So go ahead and add that as well. Okay, so once that's done installing, how you get your app up and running with the simulator is you're going to go yarn start. When we run that, you're going to see that the Expo developer tools pops up. Now, if we look on the left-hand side here, we have an iOS simulator we can run or an Android emulator, and you can also run in the web. So those are kind of the three options we can choose from here. For us, we're just going to run on the iOS simulator for now. All right, so that might take a while to run for you, but once it's done, this should show up, and you can see we just have the text from our app.js running right there. Okay, good. So let's go and start off. I think we're going to start off with our navigation. So let's come over to our UI kit in here, and I'll show you how we're going to do this. All right, so let's come over to our sidebar here, and we will check out the components here. And if we scroll down, we're going to look in our navigation right here, and we're going to be using these bottom tabs. So let's click on that. All right, so we're going to use a lot of this. We're going to come down, I think, so from line 2, React Native Navigation, we've got to bring in all the imports like that. And we'll come down just to above the app navigator, and then we'll come back and get the navigation container in a second. So copy those over, and let's come back over, and we can close this down for now. And we'll just give us a little more room here. So inside of our app.js, above our app, we're going to come in here, and just at the very top, we're going to paste that in. So go ahead and paste that in. So we got our create bottom navigator. We got a couple components that we'll get rid of in a minute, but they'll be good just to show you how it works. Then we're going to have the bottom tab navigator there. And then inside here is where we're going to put the navigation container. So let's go and grab that. So this is what we want to grab right in here. So copy that over, and we'll come back. And then we can get rid of all this here, the view too, and we can paste that in here. So this is what we're working with right now. Now there's one other thing that we want to get, and that's our application provider. So that's going to be for the Ava design system. So we got to wrap our entire app in that. So if you see here, we can auto import that, and then we can pass in a few props. So the only thing actually is going to be, we're going to spread in the Ava prop here, and then we can pass in a theme here. And for us, we're going to go with a dark theme, but you can go with a light theme also. So ava.dark like that, and then we can close this off and wrap our entire app in this like that. Okay, so that is looking good. Let's go ahead and save that. And there's one more thing we want to bring in here. So come up to the top here, and I'm just going to paste this in. So we want to import the Ava design system, and that's what we're going to pass in to our application provider there. All right, so let's save this like this, and let's just check out the app as it is now. Okay, so you may have to refresh that, but this is what we got. We have our tabs at the bottom. We can click to each thing. If we go to the orders, this is in black right now, so you might not be able to see that very well, but orders, and if we go to users, we have the users screen. So that is looking good, and we're not actually going to use those screens, but that is good just to show you how it works. All right, let's get back into this. So we're going to have 3 components here. We're going to have a create note, which is going to be kind of our first screen we see, our main screen. Then we're going to have all of our notes, which we'll go to after we create a note, and that'll just show you a list of all the notes. Then finally, we'll go to an individual note, and from there, you're going to be able to delete the note. So let's start by opening this up here, opening up our sidebar. And we're going to create a new folder just in the main folder here, and we're just going to call it screens. Normally you'd have maybe a components folder, screens folder, and maybe like a source folder too. But for us, because there's only 3 components, we're just going to have it like this. So the first thing we're going to have is we're going to create a new file, and that file is going to be called createnote.js. Okay, we're going to have a second one, and that one's going to be called allnotes.js. And the final one we're going to have is going to be called note.js. And that's going to be for our single note. So let's start off with this create note. So come over to your app here, and we're just going to copy all of this over. So copy all of that. Come over to your create note here and paste that bad boy in there. And now we can just get rid of basically everything. We just want that as kind of our base template. So get rid of all of this. Okay. And let's give ourselves a little room here. And we can get rid of this stuff in here. And let's just add a view for now. And we'll add some text. And that will just say create note. Okay. Then up here, we want to change this app, of course. So we want to change that to create note. Like that. So that is looking pretty good. Now let's come up to the top and start adding in our actual functionality. So inside of here, we're going to have some state. So we're going to go const brackets note and set note like that. And that's going to be equal to use state like this. And we're going to bring this in, auto import that. And then we're going to pass in just an empty string like this. And then the other thing we're going to have is some navigation. So we want to navigate after we create our note. So let's go const navigation. And that is going to be equal to use navigation. And bring that in. And we'll call that like that. Now, above or under here rather, let's come down. And we are going to want to save our note. So in order to do that, let's create a function. So we'll go const save note like this. And this is going to be an async function like that. And let's go and open up some brackets. And this is where we're going to use async storage. So in order to get an item, we're going to go like this. So this is how we save in our storage. So we'll go const value, and that's going to be equal to await, and we'll say async storage dot get item. And I don't think that's being brought in. So make sure we bring in the async storage here like this. So async storage dot get item, and then we're going to call our item notes like this. Okay. Then we're going to go, so you can name this whatever you like. For us, we're just going to call it notes, but make sure you're just consistent across all your calls to async storage. So then we're going to go const, and we'll just call it n for notes. And if there's a value, we're going to go JSON dot parse. And we have to go JSON.parse because we have to stringify all of our notes before we save them in async storage. So you'll see that in a minute. But without that, we cannot save them in async storage. So we'll pass in the value here. And otherwise, we're just going to pass in an empty array like this. And then below this, we're just going to go n.push. And we'll push in that note. And that note is coming from what we're going to save in our state. So that's going to be the next note. And then finally, we'll go wait. And we'll go async storage like this. And this time we're going to set our item. And this is going to be again to notes. And then we have a second argument, and that's going to be JSON.stringify like that. And then we will stringify the n we created here and push on the new note. So the entire array we're stringifying there. Then finally, we're going to add a .then on here. And we'll open up some brackets and do an arrow function here. And we'll say navigation.navigate. And we want to navigate here to our all notes, which we haven't created the actual component, anything in it yet. So that's where we're going to navigate. And then the last thing we want to do, so come down below, is we're going to set the note back to an empty string. Just like that. Okay, so let's actually bring this down here so you can just see it a little more. Okay, so this is our full async storage.set item. So we're just going to stringify the total array and then pass it in and then navigate to the all notes so we can see that. All right, so that's looking good. So let's come in here and we can get rid of this. And we're going to add a text input. So import that. And then we're going to have a few values on here. So we will have a value. And that's going to be equal to note. Then we'll have an on change text here. And that's going to be equal to set note. We're going to add some styling here. We're going to add it multi-line like this. and that is going to be equal to true. And that is going to be, so we don't have one big line, but it'll wrap around for us and give us multiple lines in our text input. Then finally, we have autofocus, and then we're going to have a selection color here. Like this, and for us, that is going to be equal to white, like that. Okay, so that is looking good. Make sure you close this off like that. And that's all we're gonna need for this. Now, we're gonna add a button here, but we also wanna add a view above it. So we're gonna add something called a keyboard avoiding view and auto import that. And then in here, we're gonna add a behavior. So this keyboard avoiding view, let's close this off again. This keyboard avoiding view in here is gonna allow us to not cover up our button when our keyboard is active. And so we want to add this behavior too for iOS and Android or whatever you have. And then we're also going to add a little style here that we'll add in a second. Dot bottom, we'll call it. Okay. And close that off. And then come down below in here. And we're going to add our button here. So you want this button to come from the UI kit and not the actual React Native. So make sure you add that one up to the top. And then we'll have a style here also, and that's going to be styles.button. And if we don't know, this is how your style sheet's going to work. So you have your style sheet down here, which we'll have to bring in the actual style sheet, I guess, in a sec. And then you can call properties on it, like container or button, that we'll add in a minute. Okay, so that's fine. And then we'll go appearance, and that's going to be equal to filled. And that's just from UI kit, and that's one type of the button. So you there have, I think they have outline and filled and different stuff. So we're going to use the filled one. And then finally in here, we're just going to have an on press. So when we press the button, we're going to save the note, which we created above, and that will save our note. And then inside here, we'll just say create note. Okay, so that's looking good. So I'm just going to paste in a couple styles here. All right, so we got a container. We're going to have the background the same color as our theme. We're going to have the color white, so our text color, some padding. This dimensions here, we got to make sure we bring this in. So this is going to get the dimensions of your device. So you call width or you call height to get the height of the particular device that you're using. And then we just have a bottom. This is going to move our button to the bottom, and our actual bottom is going to have some margin on it. All right, so we have, I think, actually everything brought in correctly. The rest of this is from our app.js we're not going to need. So when we save this, those get deleted there. Okay, so I think this is good. I don't know if this is being called, though. On press, make sure we have save note here, not just save. Okay. So that looks good. Everything seems to be good there. Let's move on. Let's copy this over. And the next thing we want to do, we're going to create our note, and then we're going to navigate to our all notes. So let's do this one next. So let's paste in all of our create note there. Then let's come up to the top, and we'll just say all notes like that. And then we can just start coding this up how we like. So we're going to have some state for our all notes too. We're just going to basically show a list of them. So we're going to have notes and set notes. So we're going to get that, and then that's going to be an array. We're going to have an array of all our notes. We're going to use this navigation again. Now, we're not going to use this save note here, so we can just get rid of that like that. And then come in here, and we're going to use something called use focus effect. And this is going to be kind of like use effect in just regular React, except for it's only going to be called when the actual screen you're on is being focused. So let's go use effect. Oh, actually, sorry, use focus effect. And we want to bring that in. And then in here, we're going to go react.use callback. And you always use a callback with this. And we'll go like this. And we'll open up some braces here. And here we're going to call a function called getNotes. And this is going to get all of our current notes that we have. And then in here, we're only going to want to call it once on load. So we can go like this. Otherwise, you'd add all your dependencies in there. Okay, so now let's create this getNotes function we just added in here. let's come down here and say const get notes, like that. And that's going to be equal to an arrow function. And here we're going to call async storage like this. And we'll say dot get item. And again, we'll say notes, which is the only one we're using. Okay, and then we're going to have a dot then here. And in here, we're going to pass in all the notes here. We can call that whatever we want. And we'll say set notes. And we'll JSON.parse this. And parse those notes. So just like this. So we're setting our notes in state right here. This is what we created up here. So we want to set them to the JSON.parse version. We got to parse them because remember we're setting them as a string every time we set them in our async storage. So we got to parse that, and then we're going to set that into our local state. All right, so next we're going to want to create a list. Now, usually in React, you might just map over something. We could do that here, but we're going to use some of the built-in functionality here in our React Native Kitten. So let's come over to our components here. And you see on the right here, we have list. So we're going to look in here. Okay, and you can see this kind of gives us a few different stylings for lists, just kind of a basic one here or kind of more complex one. I think we're going to use this one here with the dividers in between. So let's check out this code here. So we got our list dividers, all this. So what we're going to use is let's copy over this render item here because we're going to need that. So let's copy that. And above or below this rather, we're going to paste that in. So that'll be our render item there. And then let's come back again because we need the actual list. And we will copy this list over. Okay, and again, this is from before, from our notes. So let's copy this in. And we'll just paste that as that. So we're going to have a list, and then we're going to have a list item. And we're going to call the render item in our list. And then we're going to pass in the actual data that we want. So for us, that data is going to be the notes. So we can actually call that here like this. And we're actually going to reverse the order of the notes because we want it to have our most recent one at the top. So in order to do that, we can just call reverse like that and then call that. And then we want the divider again, and the render item is going to be the same. And then we're going to have a few different things in here. So we don't actually want a description because we're just going to be only having a title. And then in here, we're going to get rid of all this in here. And we're going to pass in a text here, text component. And remember, again, you want this from UI Kitten, not the normal text from React Native. So we're going to pass that in. And then we can add a category here. And that is going to be for us an H5, just like that. And then close that off. And then in here, we want the actual item. So that's coming from here. And we're not going to be using an index. Normally, if you were going to do this, you'd want to have an index involved, especially with deleting your items. That's going to make it a lot easier. But for us, we're just going to delete them by the string. So hopefully that doesn't really matter too much. And then below, we're going to have an on press like this. And in here, we're just going to navigate. So navigation dot navigate. And we're going to navigate to the note component like this. And then we can pass in a second argument, and we're going to pass in an object here. And this is kind of props we can pass along on our route here. So let's pass in something. We're going to call it single note because we want to pass in the actual note we want to be able to delete after and show as a single note. So single note, and then it's just going to be the item coming from our list item. So whatever item note it is, whatever note it is, we're going to pass that in as the label single note. Let's come up to the top here. So make sure we have all these for our UI Kitten. So we need a divider, a list item, and text coming from the UI Kitten here. And then, yeah, make sure you have your use focus effect, your navigation, and your async storage. Okay, I think that is about everything that we need. We can go ahead and save this, and it'll auto format for us. And then finally, I'm just going to add a couple things for styling. So I'm going to add some background color to match the color of our app here. All right, and then finally, let's add some styling here. Just get rid of this. All right, so just a little bit of different styling in this one here. So you can copy that over if you like. All right, let's go ahead and save that. And that should be it for this component. So let's move on to our final component over here. So again, we can just copy this one over, the all notes. And let's come into our note here and we can paste that in. Okay, looking good. And then let's get rid of this and we'll say notes, or note rather. And then we want to come through and kind of change things around a little bit. All right, so the first thing we want to do is come into here and we're going to pass in our route. And this is going to be from when we navigate. As you can see in our all notes over here, where do we navigate? Oh, our navigation.navigate. This is the single note that we passed along. So this is the param that we passed along when we route. So we're going to call that right here. And then below this, we can call const, and then we can get that single note like this. And that is going to be equal to route.params like that. Okay, and then we're going to use this navigation again. We're going to call the same use effect and the same get notes there. So those are going to stay exactly the same. And then finally, we're going to come down below here. And actually, we can get rid of this render item. We don't need this. And then below here, we're going to call delete note. So let's go const delete note. And that's going to be equal to an async function. And then in here, we're going to filter through our notes in our state here. So let's go const new notes, we'll call it. And that's going to be equal to await. And we'll go notes.filter. And this will be deleting our note. So we'll just return all the notes that we actually want. So if a note here is not equal to the single note, which is what we passed in through our route, so a single note like that, then we will not return it. And then below here, we're going to say await, and we'll say async storage, like that. And we're going to set the item like that. And then we'll go JSON again, .stringify, like this. And then we'll pass in those new notes like that. Okay, so that's great. And then finally, we'll call a .then like this. And then inside of this, we're just going to navigate. So we're going to navigate back to all our notes. So let's go navigation .navigate and then navigate back to all notes. Just like this. Okay, so let's bring this down actually so you can see it all in one. Okay, so this is going to be our delete note. So we're going to go call this new notes and we're going to say filter through our notes and return the notes that do not equal this single. This should say single note actually. Yeah, just like this. And remember, we're getting that single note from up here, which we're getting passed in through our route. So if something doesn't equal that, we're going to filter it. If it does equal the single note, we'll filter it out basically. And then we're going to set our item, our notes item, to the JSON.stringified version of that new notes. Finally, we're going to navigate to our all notes below that. All right, so getting there, almost done this. Let's come in and below this, we don't need this list here because we're not going to be using that. So we can get rid of that. And in here, we can call text. And that's from UI Kitten again. We're going to add some style here, and that's going to be equal to styles.title, which we'll add below in a second. And then again, category, and that will be equal to h1. So this will be kind of a header title right here. And then we'll come down in here, and this will just say notes like this. All right, and then let's just copy this down actually. And then in here, we're going to want to add a single note. So let's actually get rid of this here. And we'll add some styling in here for this note. So let's go font size, and that will be equal to, we'll say 22. And then margin, we're just going to give us a little bit of margin. That'll be 20. Okay, and then inside of this text here, we're going to add the single note that gets passed in through the route. So that's looking pretty good. Okay, finally, we're going to have one more thing at the bottom here. So let's do a view here. And inside of this view, we're going to have a style, and that is going to be equal to styles.bottom, like that. And then we will close that off. And inside of this view, we're going to have a button here. And again, that's our UI kitten button here. And then we're going to have an on press. And that's going to be equal to delete note, which we created above. Okay, and then we'll add some style here too. And that's going to be styles.button, like this. Okay, and then in here, we're just going to say delete. I'm just going to copy over some styles for those a bottom and whatnot, and we'll just paste that in here like so. Okay, so you can copy those styles over if you want. They'll be in the GitHub code repo too if you want to check that out. Okay, let's save that. Come over to the top, make sure we have everything imported all right. Things looking pretty good. One thing in our create node I want to add is just some styles to this view here. So that's going to be our container styles. All right, so now what we want to do is add these components into our app.js because you see we still have this user screen and order screen. So let's get rid of these for now. Okay, and then we're going to come in here, and this one is going to be called what? We'll call it create, like this tab, and then all notes. So these will be the labels for our bottom tab here, create and all notes, and that is looking good. And then our screens are going to be, we'll call this create here. And then this will be called create note. That's our create note component. So make sure we're bringing that in automatically. Then finally, we have, or not finally, but we have all notes like this, and we'll have all notes here. Like that. And then let's copy this one down. And then the last one we want to have here and here is both called note, like this. Okay. Actually, we're probably not bringing these in, are we? Okay, make sure you're bringing in all these components. I don't know if we're bringing this in either. All notes, yeah. Okay, you want to make sure, yeah, don't forget that. All right, so let's save this. Make sure you have these here imported, and we should be good. Let's check it out. Oh, we're missing the dimensions variable. So in our create note, we didn't bring in this dimensions variable. So come up to the top here, and right in here, that's gonna be necessary. So add that in, and that's just from React Native, so save that. And we want that button at the bottom here. So, oh, styles, make sure you have styles here, not style sheet. So go ahead and save that. Looking pretty good. Okay, so this looks good. Now let's see if it works. So we can test this out here. Whatever, create that note. And we want some padding up here, but other than that, that looks pretty good. And I actually forgot to add in one thing right here, and that's gonna be the text of notes in here. So make sure we have that, and that's gonna have some styles from the title. And that should take care of this problem. So now we have the notes here. We can create another one, whatever, create that, one more. Okay, and you see we have these different notes, and we click on one. Again, we're missing the styling here, but that seems to work good. Let's go just fix that real quick in our note. Again, this shouldn't be style sheet, that should be styles. Save that. My autocomplete's failing me. Okay, and that looks good. And then when we delete this note, it deletes it and takes us back to the alt notes. So delete this one, delete this one. It works perfect. All right, so that's it for this video. Hopefully that was helpful getting you started with React Native. And yeah, until next time, thanks for watching.